listening to Reinvented, and I'm your host, Jen Eckhart, and words cannot even begin to describe how excited I am to welcome today's guest. In fact, he's such a badass that he juggles multiple nicknames. He's known as the Lionheart, Y2J, the Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, the Painmaker, Le Champion, the Demo God. He's a rock star, the lead singer of heavy metal band Fozzy. He's a New York Times best-selling author, an actor. Gosh, I'm out of breath over here. A professional wrestler, but not just any wrestler. A 7-time world champion, having won the AEW Championship, WWE Championship, WCW Championship twice, and the World Heavyweight Championship 3 times. Chris, you can hire me as your publicist when all is said and done. But honestly, I'm a little intimidated by my guest's eclectic resume, but mainly because I just witnessed him take on 9 MMA fighters at once live at AEW Grand Slam here in New York City. Chris Jericho, welcome to Reinvented, my friend.
Thanks. I'm a little bit sad that you forgot the fact that I have a bake sale down the street at the Ladies Auxiliary on Sunday night. So drop on by, free coffee. So we're really excited about that.
That's awesome.
But I'm even more excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited to have you here and that this worked out. You're such a busy rock star on the road, on tour right now. You're in Cincinnati, I believe. But, you know, Chris, I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit nervous having you on my show, because apparently you still use dial-up. Because when I asked you for your email address to book today's interview, you gave me, oh, wait, hold on. Wait, what? Do I? Chris, are you?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Are you there? Is anybody? Hold on, wait.
Wow. Those sound effects are blasts from the past.
You know, I had to roast you a little bit because Chris Jericho, ladies and gentlemen, he gave me an AOL email address.
Well,
That's
okay,
right.
You're bagging on me for it, but here's the reason why. That's the first email address that I ever had. And I figured, why bother changing it? Because I change my phone number all the time, as we do now, and it's such a hassle. Change your credit card. You got to put the numbers in. I have one email address. I don't want to mess around with it. I've gone this far with it. Why change it? I know it could be Chris Jericho at chrisjericho.com or whatever it may be, Chris Jericho at jeneckhart.com. I don't want that. I got my AOL address. I've had it since the 90s, and I'm going to keep it. So you can bag on it all you want. But to me, I don't have to send out here's my new email. And then it always happens, 20 or 30 people a year down the line. Hey, I emailed you, man. You never emailed me back. Well, did you get the email where I sent you my new email? Well, no, I didn't get that. And then they think you're a snob, and then everyone's mad at you. So I don't want to get anyone angry at me.
I get it. I mean, so you're saying if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, well, because I got a guy the other day. Hey, man, I texted you, about 6 weeks ago. So I changed my number 2 years ago, and you have my new number. Oh, sorry, man. I thought you were mad at me. So there you go.
I get it. Well, thanks. I feel I'm in your exclusive AOL fan club now. I now have your AOL email address. So if I ever want to flood you with like spam or, those like chain emails that people send to each other. Anyway, that is just so funny. But listen, in all seriousness, let's get down to business. I wanted to invite you on Reinvented because I think you fit the theme of reinvention to a T. So much so that fellow professional wrestler Matt Cardona recently called you, my friend, the king of reinvention on your podcast show, Talk is Jericho. We're all about reinventing oneself here on Reinvented with Jen Eckhart. So I want to know, Chris, what do you attribute as being the driving force behind being able to reinvent yourself so many times while juggling so many different roles?
Well, I mean, the word juggling, it seems like it's like kind of out of control, and it's not that at all. It really is. I think we discussed this last week backstage. It really is time management. And I've never, going way back to when I was a teenager, I thought, okay, well, what do I want to do? I really am intrigued by pro wrestling, but I also really love playing in my band. So I'll be in a rock and roll band and I'll be a pro wrestler. Since day one, I never once was like, well, now that I'm a wrestler, I'll be in a band. It's kind of they've always been locked in conjunction with each other. And once I started to get some success in wrestling, which then transferred over into music, now I realize there's really no rules or boundaries for what I want to do. So that's where all these other things come from. It's because if I'm interested in it and I want to give it a try, I will. And I also like constantly keeping people intrigued and on the edge of what I'm going to do next. That's where the reinvention comes in, because you never want to get stagnant. You always want to keep rolling and keep doing interesting things. And I have a lot of people, a lot of people that follow my career that kind of almost live vicariously through Chris Jericho. What's he going to do next? And that's why I'm also very careful about the things that I pick to do, because I don't want anything to come across just as a money grab or something that I'm not fully committed to, because people will know that they're not stupid. So I like the reinvention aspect because it keeps things fresh and it's exciting, not just for me, but for everybody that follows my career.
Keep them on their toes, right? There's a
Yeah,
phrase,
and keep me on my toes too.
keep it fresh. You know, you've performed in WCW, ECW. Correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, with saying any of these. WWE, New Japan, and AEW as a babyface, good guy. Am I saying that right? And a heel, which is the bad guy. You still maintain your staple of moves from back in the day, such as the Walls of Jericho and the Lion Slot. And you've also incorporated new signature moves along the way, like the Code Breaker and the Judas Effect. Talk to me a little bit about the evolution, or I guess the reinvention of Chris Jericho, the wrestler.
Well, I wouldn't even use it for like, obviously the moves are one thing, but I think it's more of the look. Like there's a t-shirt that came out a few years ago. It was called the Faces of Jericho. And there was literally like, I think 12 or 15 different eras. And I always liked the type of performers that you could dress up as on Halloween. You knew instantly, oh, okay, that's Paul Stanley, with the Star Child. That's, that's Hannibal Lecter or whatever. So for me, there's a lot of different eras of Jericho. And every Halloween, I always have fans send in pictures of their Jericho costumes. And it's all different eras.
I am so dressing up as Chris Jericho for Halloween this year.
You could pick an era and go with it.
You just gave
but
me my Halloween costume.
It all kind of, it's very inspired by David Bowie, in that Bowie was always different every album, and there's different characters, from Ziggy Stardust to Aladdin Sane to the Thin White Duke to the Let's Dance era, and you could see these different eras. And when you see a picture of David Bowie, oh, that's from the Tin Machine, or that's from the Berlin years, or that's from like I said, Aladdin Sane. You could always see the difference in the look, and there'd always be a difference in the sound, but it always boiled down to still David Bowie. And that's what I wanted to do with Jericho, because I realized that we're on TV every week, 52 weeks a year. If you don't change something up, it's very easy for people to just kind of get bored or not be challenged by what you're doing. And I never wanted that. So I always wanted to change my look, something different, a move, a catchphrase, whatever it may be, because that, once again, that keeps things fresh.
Yeah,
and
keeps you in
that's
the game,
the most important.
Keeps you relevant.
Yeah, and I never want to be a nostalgia act, just going off of something that I did even 3 years ago. Like when people say, hey, put me on the list of Jericho. Like it seems like, oh, that was a fun idea, but it seems like 1,000 years ago. I would never want to do the list of Jericho because it had a great moment in time. And if I bring it back now, it just feels like I'm beating a dead horse. There's other things I can think of to replace that. And that's kind of what my mindset always is.
I love that. Well, speaking of reinventing, that's exactly what AEW has done, at least in the world of professional wrestling. I mean, for my viewers and listeners who aren't familiar with the world of wrestling, AEW stands for All Elite Wrestling. It was founded in 2019 by the Khan family. Tony Khan, awesome guy. They're the owners of the NFL's Jacksonville Jaguars football team. AEW is the second largest professional wrestling promotion in the world behind the WWE. WWE, Chris, used to be the only game in town, but AEW is giving them a real run for their money. I love a good David versus Goliath story. And to me, this is it. Is there sort of a reinvention going on in the entire industry right now that fans, they have a real alternative now for the first time in 20 years?
Yeah, and number two in some ways, but the last 3 weeks we have done bigger demo numbers than WWE Raw has done, which is the flagship show. So I think our company came out of nowhere basically, and really exploded because of a different attitude. And you can see that when you watch our shows. And you were there when we had the show at Arthur Ashe in front of 22,000 people in New York City,
I was.
which is basically WWE's backyard. Right. So to draw a crowd like that and get the reception that we had, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that we are the hottest wrestling company in the world. And more importantly, we have the cool factor. And when you have the cool factor in any form of show business, whether it's wrestling, whether it's music, whether it's a TV show, people jump aboard quickly because they want to figure out what's everyone talking about here? What is all this
Right.
about? And
Right.
AEW has that. So, we have changed the industry just by being in existence and focusing on something that was different from every other wrestling company. And I think that's one of the reasons why we had such a great fan base and have exploded to where we are right now.
To me, what makes AEW cool is that it features a lot of homegrown talent and it's
Yeah.
not like as heavily scripted. You guys have a lot more freedom and flexibility. So you mentioned that the biggest TV event so far of the year, AEW Dynamite at Arthur Ashe Stadium. There has never been a wrestling event at Arthur Ashe before. As someone who has performed literally all over the world in just about every venue imaginable, what was it like to perform at Arthur Ashe?
Well, it was unbelievable. And there was a little bit of genius on Tony Khan's part because everyone was talking about the Garden in New York City, Madison Square Garden. And obviously, like, what people don't understand is to play the Garden is very expensive, for one. So you don't really make money when you're at the Garden. You just do it because it's Madison Square Garden. And I think the idea was everyone was saying AEW's got to go to the Garden. That's going to really be your coming out party in New York. And Tony was like, what if I don't want to do the Garden? There must be somewhere else. And found this Arthur Ashe Stadium, a tennis stadium. And the moment I went in there, I was like, oh my gosh, this place is amazing. It's better than the Garden because it basically, as you saw, the seats go straight up in the air. So all the noise comes right down into the ring. People are just kind of over top of you. And it was just really cool to see this place that was going, this atmosphere is off the charts crazy. We don't need to go to the Garden now because we've created a new place for us because there's never been a wrestling show at Arthur Ashe, which once again, we kind of were the debut for that. And what an amazing venue and an amazing building. So once again, we do things outside of the box. Let's do a show in New York. Well, if you really want to be big in New York, you got to go to the Garden. I disagree. What if we find our own place and make it the AEW kind of home base in New York and turn that into the place to be? And once again, I'll bet you there'll be other wrestling companies in that Arthur Ashe Stadium. They're probably already negotiating it now. But we did it first and it's ours.
Yep. They're going to follow suit. Absolutely. Just shove all those uppity US Open tennis folks to the side. AEW is coming through. No, I love it. I mean, the seats were insane. The energy, the crowd. Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega kicked off the show with what was arguably the match of the year. I mean, yours was very good, Chris, but like, no, they killed it. But I am curious. So when a match like that is going on, give my viewers and listeners a taste of what it's like in the back when something like that. Like, are the boys and girls huddled around Gorilla, like the production area, right? Behind the curtain. Like, what's the energy like backstage when all that's happening?
Well, when you have a show to do, I mean, obviously you want to watch other matches, but if you're wrestling too, you have your own things to worry about. So for me, I wanted to see that match because I'm big fans of both those guys. And once again, our style of wrestling is much more wide open. Just go out there and be great. And I wanted to see it. I'd never seen the match before. As far as I know, they might have wrestled years and years and years ago, but basically it was the first time that both of them had faced each other. And I was watching very proud. I was very proud of the match because I knew this is it, man. This is, once again, another reason why we're the best wrestling company in the world, because we have matches like this that nobody can touch. And 30 minutes of TV time to do this match. Once again, it's the difference between, Coke and Pepsi or the Beatles and the Stones or whatever it may be. Like, now there is another place you can go to get your fix for wrestling, and there wasn't before. And I think a lot of people really appreciate the fact that now there is this other world where you go, wow, this company does it this way and you can tell, this company does it this way and you can tell, and I really like that style. And I'm very proud of that because I was here from the start. And in a lot of ways, the first 3 months of AEW was on my shoulders to do this new company. What's it going to be like? And we had a TV deal, but it was an ad rev share was what we had for a contract, which means, people buy ads and we get a piece of that. 3 months later, after the shows had been doing super amazing and the ratings and the demos, we suddenly had a contract for $175 million over 4 years from TNT. That might not have happened if I wasn't there. So the first 3 months were very important in the genesis of this company to get it off the ground and very quickly make new stars, which you mentioned, and show people there's something different going on here. And it worked right out of the gate. And here we are, not even 2 years later, just exploding even bigger than we expected.
Speaking of new stars, we've seen a lot of crossover between wrestling promotions with AEW, specifically Impact, NWA and New Japan guys coming over, even deathmatch wrestlers. You recently went to war with Nick Gage. One other name that's out there floating around is Will Ospreay. Could you see him potentially joining AEW?
Well, I'd love to see Will in AEW. I actually called him way back when we were first starting out to see what kind of interest he had. And I think there's a lot of guys that want to work in Japan and spend time there. I know because I was one of them. I've been to Japan over 60 times now at this point in my career. And I think there will come a time where Will decides he wants to work, in his own country. I know he's English, but, America, that sort of an idea is much more similar to England than Japan is. And, there's something to be said about being a worldwide television superstar. And you won't get that working for New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's great to be there, but the big leagues, the real big leagues kind of lie in America. So I would love to see Will working with AEW. And at some point, I think that will probably happen. But in the meantime, we are building the talent that we have. And if you see, MJF to Sammy Guevara to Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, all these Hangman Page. I mean, the list goes on and on of these guys that we've built basically from scratch. Even Kenny Omega, Young Bucks, they weren't half as big then as they are now. So I think we've done a great job because you have to build from the bottom up. And we have you mentioned the Khans owning the Jaguars, and they own the Fulham Football Club in England as well.
That's right. Yep.
And they know how to put together a team. As you're a sports person too, you have to start with having veterans that have won the championships before. Then you have guys that are in their prime that are scoring 50 goals a year as a hockey analogy. Then you got the grinders that you need to have a winning team. You've got the rookies. You've got a great farm system. And that's what we have in AEW. Tony's done a great job of building these levels to where even our dark shows, our YouTube show, everybody's over. Everyone's popular on the dark shows. Everyone's popular on Elevation. Then you get to Dynamite and Rampage, the top of the top. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a fan base. And once again, that's one of the reasons why we are the hottest and coolest wrestling company in the world today.
Keyword cool.
Cool factor.
Very cool. That cool factor is everything. Okay, last wrestling question here that I have to know. So we've obviously staying true to the theme of reinventing. We've seen a reinvention of sorts with respect to cinematic wrestling matches, most notably The Undertaker versus AJ Styles and The Fiend, Brian Wyatt versus John Cena, both in the WWE. This is where sort of the movies meet wrestling. Would you, Chris Jericho, be interested in a match like that? And if so, do you have an opponent in mind? Well,
honestly, Jen, I mean, to be honest with you, those matches were great, but the real cinematic matches started in AEW with the Stadium Stampede. We did the first one last year in May of 2020. We did another one this year. And the reason why we started it is because we were in the middle of a pandemic, and our venue was Daly's Place in Jacksonville, which is an amphitheater that's basically connected to the stadium where the TIAA stadium where the Jaguars play. And Tony wanted to do a Stadium Stampede match. What does that mean? We'll have a match at the stadium. What are we going to do? We had no idea what the hell we were going to do. So we basically filmed it overnight on a Saturday, edited it on Sunday, and released it as kind of like it was the very first cinematic match. and it got huge reception. It was a great success. And so for the second one, we actually brought in a stunt coordinator and wanted to make it more like a John Wick movie. And that was different because the pandemic was over. So we had a full crowd at Daly's place. So we did the whole cinematic thing. And then when the movie kind of came to an end, 3, 2, 1, we moved the movie out into the live element where the fans were. And that was a huge success as well. They were both two of our biggest pay-per-views ever based on the Stadium Stampede. So, I mean, those matches were very important because once again, we were just trying to give people a diversion and think of something different. There's no crowds. So what are we supposed to do? Sting and Darby Allin had a great cinematic match for us as well too. When we brought Sting back in, what's he going to be like in the ring? We don't want to maybe put him in a live situation at first. So you tape it and you make a movie. So there's a place for that, but nothing replaces being in front of a live audience and in front of a live crowd. So maybe we'll do a Stadium Stampede 3 and the Inner Circle was in number 1 and 2. I'd like to kind of hand off the baton to somebody else and see what someone else could come up with. But if they want us to do a 3, I mean, we're the seasoned vets. I mean, you got to see it. We rappelled off of the Jacksonville scoreboard like 200 feet in the air. That was our ring entrance by rappelling down the scoreboard.
That's so awesome.
Which most places would have stuntmen do it, but not in wrestling. We were climbing up that freaking thing, standing on top of the scoreboard, looking down, and you got to take that step off the scoreboard. And it's a little bit scary because it bounces and then you start going down. But like all of that stuff was very exciting and very much, like I said, like a John Wick, a very stunt heavy movie that people really enjoyed seeing. So there is a place for it for sure.
I love it. What a visionary Tony Khan is, and just bringing this all to fruition. You guys are crushing it over there, and I wish you all the luck with AEW. But just switching gears outside of wrestling for a minute, you are known, Chris, as the lead singer of the heavy metal band Fozzy. Sane by Fozzy is legit my anthem right now. It is my life anthem. It's one of my favorite songs. If it's okay with you, I want to play a little bit of that song for my viewers and listeners.
Sure.
It's too far gone, this delirium, so I'm losing it all, I can't take insane, this reality, so I'm watching it fall, watching them all go crazy, crazy, it's the only way. Times like these I'd rather be crazy, crazy, face another day. 'Cause times like these I don't wanna be.
You guys are killing it right now. What's the band up to these days? Like, get us up to speed on all things Fozzy. Did you guys just recently open for Metallica? Like, what's going on? You guys are blowing up.
Well, we are on tour right now, and Sane is actually number 12 on the charts this week with a bullet. So it'll be top 10, which will be our 5th top 10 song in the last couple of years, which is exciting for us. And we're on tour. Like I said, we had this tour booked for, I think, May of 2020. Obviously, it kept getting postponed and postponed and postponed. But now the tour is up and running. It's been going great. It's our most successful U.S. tour we've ever had. We did a festival 2 days ago in Louisville that we did open for Judas Priest and Metallica, which was huge for us, not just as musicians, but as fans as well, which was great. And, you know, I'm friends with all those guys, but to play with them is different. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, it's just great to be back. It's similar, like I said, to being back with AEW and going in front of, 22,000 people, like we said, at the Arthur Ashe, and then doing 40,000 in Louisville, and then doing, 1,000 tonight in Cincinnati. It's just great to see people back having a good time. It's so important because we really missed it. Like that was, to me, was the biggest downfall or downer of the lockdown, was just not being able to go and enjoy these moments of being in front of a live crowd. So, yeah, it's been great for us, man. And like I said, we never realized how important rock radio still is until we started getting played on rock radio. And our song Judas, which is just blown up. You talk about blowing up, obviously, in the AEW arenas. and everywhere else is almost about to go gold, which in this day and age to get a gold record is insane, but it shows just how huge the song has for a reach.
I officially know all the lyrics to Judas. I actually was proudly singing Judas when you walked out.
I heard. Carnegie Hall.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, you blew my cover. Now my viewers and listeners are going to know I'm a choir nerd. Thanks for that, Chris Jericho. Yes, I did perform at Carnegie Hall.
That's huge. It's amazing.
What's the saying? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice till you get to Carnegie. There you go, baby. Well, listen, for those who haven't seen Sane's music video, Sane by Fozzy, the music video, it is the first, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the first ever music video that was shot from start to finish on a roller coaster. One of your bandmates literally throws an electric guitar off the tippy top of the roller coaster. Tell us about your experience shooting that insane music video.
Yeah, I mean, it was an idea that Rich, my partner in Fozzy, the guitar player, thought about doing this idea on a roller coaster. And I was like, dude, I'm not a roller coaster guy, but I'll give it a try. I'll do it because once again, no one's ever done it before. And when you can do something that's never been done before in show business, in rock and roll, you want to take a chance and try it. So we went to this place called Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. That's actually the name of a place, Santa Claus, Indiana.
There's actually a town called Santa Claus. That is hysterical.
Yes, there is.
Go on.
So we went to a Holiday World on the Voyager, which is the fastest wooden roller coaster in the world. And you might say, well, what's the difference between a wooden roller coaster and like a steel one? Well, wooden are much more jolting and shaking. And
I was going to say, it literally looked like you were going to fall off at any moment.
Yeah.
Like I was a little worried there. It was touch and go.
Touch and go. So then they put a camera, they mounted it on the front car, and I'm sitting there. And then we kind of had one guy here, one guy here, one guy here. And then as you're going around the turns, you see all the different band members, but I have to sing it. And obviously we're lip syncing, but I have to lip sync it, but I have to look cool and like be in front of the camera. But meanwhile, this freaking thing is just going like this. You're kind of holding on. Right. And then we did one where you speed up the song to double speed. So then when you play it back at normal, it looks a little bit slower. So then I'm lip syncing really quick and blah, 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 that sort of thing. So we had to do 6 takes of it.
So hold on. So you had to ride the roller coaster 6 times.
6 times in a row. Yeah. And the problem is that
wait, hold on. How many times did your bandmate have to throw off the electric guitar? 6 times?
Once.
One time. Okay.
Yeah.
You only broke one guitar.
Just one guitar. Okay. So, and we had to get major permits and cause you can't throw stuff off a roller coaster because,
it's a liability.
Liability, but also the park was closed, but liability and also like momentum. Like if you throw it up, it could fucking hit somebody behind you. Right. There's only 5 of us on the thing, but technically you could throw it up and the drummer could get hit. So we had to throw it off the side and then you get one take. And then they had kind of the whole place cordoned off because you don't know where it's going to land or what it's going to do. But we had to get permits for that and they have to get special permission because you just can't do that.
Sign this dotted line and please do not sue us if you get hit.
Basically. So then 2 of the takes were busted right away because the music didn't work on one and the camera didn't work on another. And there's nothing worse than that because as soon as the train leaves the station, literally, you got to ride it. And it's like, well, we can't do it because the music's not playing. So you just got to sit there. And then that's really hard because at least I can concentrate if it was working. So we did all of that in 4 takes and our one guitar player couldn't do 2 of them. He was getting too sick, literally getting sick. So if you watch the video really closely, there's a couple shots where he's not in it. But you do what you got to do. And we got it done and we edited it together. And once again, it did 1 million views in a week because people
you're up to 2. You're actually up to, I think it's 2 million. Now.
It's slowed down a bit. It's up to 2 million, but it still was really cool to see the reaction to it because it's never been done before. And people are like, well, how did they do this? And did they CGI it and all this other stuff? It's like, no, we got on a roller coaster old school and just sang.
We almost threw up. We lost a bandmate. We had to get permits.
We did.
Gosh. Wow.
And the last take, we had to take 45 minutes because a couple of guys were green. The human body is not made to ride this thing 6 times in a row.
Right.
And if you're a roller coaster person, you might go, oh yeah, but I am not. So doing it once was like enough. But then I'm like, geez, we got to do this 5 times. And at the end of the last take, I looked behind me at Rich and I was like, I'm done. That's the last one. I can't do anymore. And the rest of the night I felt super queasy and weird, but we got it. We edited it. It was perfect. And now it exists forever.
It is a work of art. All my viewers and listeners, go out there, get on YouTube. Let's get this numbers up. You're at 2 million views, but Sane by Fozzy. It is such an awesome song, such a great music video. So, guests on your podcast, Chris, have included Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, Lemmy from Motorhead, Paul Stanley from Kiss, my personal favorite, Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins. Love Smashing Pumpkins. I'm a big 90s alternative rock gal.
Right on.
Who has been your biggest inspiration or like influence that's really helped you along in your music career so far?
Are you talking about that I know or just as a fan?
Oh yeah, or just that like somebody who's just helped you in getting to where you are today musically.
I think there's been a lot of guys that I was fans of that I've become friends with, someone like Paul Stanley is always cool to talk to. Lars from Metallica is a very good friend of mine. I'm not really asking advice from these guys, but you kind of follow in their footsteps and kind of, when you've been in show business as long as I have, 31 years coming up this week, next week, whenever it may be, you pick and choose the qualities and the ideas from the different guys that you admire. As a frontman, for example, I was a big, like I said, Paul Stanley, David Lee Roth, Mick Jagger, Freddie Mercury, those type of guys. Bruce Dickinson, if I might have said that already. But you watch how these guys perform and how they captivate a crowd, and there's a real art form to it. And it's not easy. It's like being a podcast host. It's not easy being a podcast host. Nope. And people think it is because there's literally a million podcasts and a lot of them come and go so fast. So there's a real art form to it. And there's an art form to being a front man of a rock and roll band. Yes, it's important to sing. Yes, it's important to have that power, but you also have to be the party host, the ringleader, get people involved in the show. That's what people want. That's what I always wanted as a fan. And I still do. So like I said, you really, it's the same thing when I first started wrestling. You take the inspiration and you add it into, your own little blender and put a lot of yourself in it and kind of shake it all up. And that's what you get. And Chris Jericho, the wrestler, is different from Chris Jericho, the singer, but there are qualities that kind of interact and blend in both. Being a live performer, whether you're a comedian, a wrestler, a singer, a Shakespearean actor, there is a real element that you have to connect to the audience. If you can connect to the audience, you'll always have them as fans. If you can elicit that emotion from them where they're excited to see you, then you'll always have them the next time you come to town.
Absolutely. I have to know, the name Fozzy, is your band named after Fozzie Bear, the Sesame Street character? No, do you get asked that a lot?
I do, especially back when we first started. But it was really funny because we met each other kind of briefly. Rich and I met, and I was thinking about starting up a band, and he was in a cover band in Atlanta called Fozzy Osbourne. And he was in a band called Stuck Mojo. There was a big contingency of Atlanta bands, and so whenever they were home from tour, they would just form this cover band, Fozzy Osbourne. So he was like, yeah, if you ever want to come jam with us, just come jam with us. So we went and did these couple shows, and we got a record deal right out of the gate because of who was in the band and blah, blah, blah.
And you're so good. Let's be
real. Thank you. We weren't as good then as we are now, but so Fozzy Osbourne, we're like, we'll just call ourselves Fozzy. And little did we know that we would really enjoy playing together. And when it took off, it's like, well, we're already Fozzy, so let's just keep it. At first, it seems like a strange name, but there's two things about it. One, in a world with like Metallica, Kiss, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Duran Duran, like when you hear these names, Def Leppard, these names are stupid, and then they just become names. Yeah. And that's the same with us with Fozzy. And also, too, it is the easiest name to chant. And every show we do, I don't care if we're opening for Iron Maiden or Avenged Sevenfold or Metallica or Shinedown or whatever, everybody's chanting Fozzy one song into the set because it's just easy to say. So it has become, it's our name, and that's kind of where it started and how it's progressed to where we are now.
Just 2 syllables, you're not like Def Leppard.
It's hard to
Metallica. Like just
Yeah,
Fozzy,
you can't do that.
Fozzy.
Yeah,
I like
Fozzy,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
You can't really chant Rage Against the Machine. It's hard.
That's good. That's very true. I am curious
Yes.
though, just a last musical question. You know, you do so much, Chris, that I've literally had to compartmentalize like wrestling, music. I have like a generic section. But I do want to know and I love asking artists this question, but what is your favorite musical venue that you've ever played at? Mine is Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado.
Wow, that's amazing.
What's yours?
Yeah, we've never played Red Rocks. That's obviously a famous place that hopefully we'll get to do. But I mean, the ones that kind of stand out for me, there's a place called the Astoria in London that was a great venue where actually the Beatles played there, and they've now torn it down. But I remember playing there the first time. It was kind of like, wow, we've really made it. The Astoria in London. Another great one was we played the Bank of California Stadium in Los Angeles with Iron Maiden. And that wasn't a festival. That was just Iron Maiden and Fozzy. And that was right before the lockdown, September of 2019. Just incredible for so many reasons. Obviously, it's a stadium in the States with Iron Maiden. That was huge for us. The Whiskey A Go-Go in LA is a classic because it's the fucking whiskey, man. You know, it's just one of those places where everybody played, you know, Van Halen and the Doors and Motley Crue and kind of everyone in between. And then there's another great place in, what was I thinking? In England. I don't know what I was going to say. We're actually playing the Cavern Club in Liverpool on this next tour. It's called an underplay because it's a small place, but you were playing it because it's obviously where the Beatles started. It's where they cut their teeth, the Cavern Club. And when that came up, I said, do you want to do this underplay just for the historical reasons? It's like, absolutely. Like the Cavern Club, like that's where you see the early days of the Beatles in this sweaty, jam-packed, tight club. That's the Cavern Club, and it still exists to this day. So that's another place that we're really excited to play. So you play some of these really cool venues that have name value and the historical significance. And those are always kind of fun because of that.
Absolutely. So when you sell out Madison Square Garden, I'm going to be here to say I knew him when.
Yes.
I knew him.
Yes. Well,
when he came on Reinvented.
Last time we sold out the Gramercy Theater, which is not quite the Garden, but I think next time we're doing the Irving Plaza, and then we'll keep moving our way up the ladder.
I love it, and you got to put Red Rocks on the list, man. It is.
I would love to do that. Absolutely, one of our goals for sure.
Seeing a show there, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but it's almost like a spiritual experience. It really.
Were you there with the choir?
No. Oh, very, very funny.
No, who were you there with?
I was not there with the choir. I did not perform there, but I've gone. I guess.
I thought you said you performed there.
No, and my friend never performed at Red Rocks, but I'd
love to be there.
I have gone to many shows there, but even just attending a show, it is like a spiritual experience. I mean, it's hard to describe. It is just an incredible venue. So I hope you put it on the list. I hope you perform there.
No, absolutely. I mean, I remember it from Under a Blood Red Sky. You too. Hello, Red Rocks, and it's just like what a place. So
I love it. Well, speaking of Colorado, you know, I'm glad I brought this up because you're a paranormal guy, are you not? You're into the paranormal.
Yes.
So you talk about paranormal stuff and ghost experiences on your Talk is Jericho podcast. That's so unique and interesting to me. I have a ghost story of my own that I'm willing to share publicly for the first time ever. But I'm curious, and if we have time, Chris, can you tell us about the creepiest paranormal event that's ever happened to you?
Well, I haven't had a lot of paranormal. I had something that's called a time displacement once, which is what happens when people get abducted by aliens, where a chunk of time will just disappear. But I've always been into paranormal and supernatural and cryptozoology and all those sort of things since I was a kid. And when I started Talk is Jericho, I originally told the original boss that I had with podcast one, it's like, I can't just do a wrestling podcast. He's like, well, that's what we want. I'm like, dude, you're talking to the wrong guy. I've got too many other interests. There's so much that I would want to talk about that I'm going to have to do it my own way. Absolutely. And they allowed it. And then it became, very successful. But I was a big fan in the late 90s of a guy called Art Bell. And this was from when we were driving late at night after shows or whatever it may be. Art Bell was on every radio station. And if you're on a long drive where the stations would change as you were driving, as soon as he faded out of one, you could find him on another. And he was kind of a real paranormal superstition, things you can't explain type of a guy who would have all these people call in, all these weirdos would call in. And I was just obsessed with that. And so when I started Talk is Jericho, I said, I want to be kind of the next generation of Art Bell. And that's where I started. And I get people contacting me all the time, conspiracy theorists or, vampire hunters or, flat earth guys or, UFO guys, ghosts, Bigfoot, lake monsters, you name it. And I'm into all of it. So I'll have everybody on. And my attitude is I'll never scoff or mock you for what you believe. I'll give you an open forum to say whatever you want, and tell your story. And those are always great guests because they're very committed into what they believe. And if the guest is committed, then it comes across as a great story. And that to me is the reason why I really enjoy that style of show with Talk is Jericho as well.
I think it's so cool and unique that you sprinkle that in to your podcast. A lot of people don't know this, but when you and I were talking earlier, I mean, you mentioned that you started podcasting, 8 years ago? You really put
2013. Yeah.
Yeah. You put podcasting on the map before it was even mainstream or considered cool. I mean, you're definitely a trailblazer in that arena. And I always thought that was cool that you talk about ghosts and haunted hotels and stuff. And so speaking of haunted hotels, I mean, I went to the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. That's where Stephen King sat and wrote The Shining. Actor Jim Carrey is on the record there of having checked in and then went to his room and then immediately checked out and was like, no, I'm not going to stay here. It is creepy. I don't know if you've been there. If you are into the paranormal out there, and this also for my fans, viewers, listeners, go check it out. Check out the Stanley Hotel. They do ghost tours there. Freaked the living hell out of me. I went in as a skeptic. We had a tour guide by the name of Scary Mary. No last name. Literally, if you go there for a tour, ask for Scary Mary, book a tour. It is quite something. There's a ghost there, and he likes blondes apparently. And he's a little bit of a prankster. And I was in a dark concert hall, and I felt fingers running through my hair, Chris Jericho, and there was nobody. There was nobody behind me. I was with a group of my friends, and I thought, one of my friends is playing a joke. They're just, playing a joke on me. I turn around, nobody's there. I am a believer. It's freaked me out. I felt nauseous, all the things that people say when you're in the presence of, that happens, and it pretty much scared me to death. So. Again, any viewers and listeners, if you're interested, check out the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park. It'll give you the scare of your life. But switching gears here, Chris, you're also an actor. Now I say that, with a grain of salt, because I love how we have The Rock and John Cena in major motion pictures. And I adore the fact that your acting credentials include Sharknado 3. Oh, hell no. Great film. Didn't win an Oscar. Still a great film. I want to know, what was it like getting eaten by a flying shark in the movie?
Well, the funny thing about the movie is it's filled with so many cameos, and they asked me to do it. I always kind of I don't know. This is actually a pretty good part. It's actually a big part for a Sharknado movie. I think it was in it for 30 minutes or something. And the advice that Ian Ziering gave me was, he said, when you get eaten by the shark, make sure to move around a lot. And the more you move, the more they have to put the computer CGI shark eating you. So if you can really get into it, it'll be a better death scene. And we filmed it in Universal Studios. So I was the ride attendant, but I had to wear full length sleeves because they don't allow tattoos on their ride operators.
Oh.
And they wanted us to follow strict protocol
That's
as
a
if it was
little,
real.
is that
Yeah,
discrimination universal? What do you got? What do
it
you
was
got against
very,
tattoos?
very strict, universal.
Are they against
So
long? Are they against long hair, long rock star hair too?
I don't know, but the thing was, we had to go through protocol. Like when the shark is coming, I have to like make sure your seatbelts are locked and make sure everyone gets off. And like that's how they wanted the Universal employees to be, to be depicted. But I was like, fuck, if there's a flying shark, I'm out of here. I'm not making sure that everyone's, seatbelts are unclipped and like, you make sure that everyone's safe. Like if there's a flying shark, the bets are off, man. This isn't getting ready to go on a roller coaster ride. So that's why Bruce, the ride attendant, died, because he was so valiant in standing up for his customers that he made sure they could all escape, and then got eaten by a flying shark that, by the way, had gone through the loop-de-loop of the roller coaster first.
I saw that. I did see that. Bruce, the ride attendant, was definitely the star employee, probably employee of the month at the theme park. That
it should have been, yeah.
Should have been.
It should have been.
I love it. Well, you actually had short hair, if I'm not mistaken, during that movie. Now, your look has evolved, obviously, over time. You have amazing hair. I'm just going to say it. Chris Jericho. In fact, Natty, there he goes, the hair flip. Natty from the WWE commented one of your recent Instagram posts saying, you have the best hair in the business. I have to know.
Oh, wow.
What shampoo does Chris Jericho use?
Not even sure what it is. Like there's a shampoo that I use that the hairstylist or whatever you use. I was gonna say barber, but that's makes me sound like I'm 5 years old. It's just hair back. I decided I'm not going to put it in a ponytail and I'm not going to dye it. If anything, I'll do like kind of a Game of Thrones type of a thing. And as a result, it just grew out kind of straight and good, I guess. So, and there's no reason to cut it. I'll cut it eventually, I'm sure. But until then, I kind of like it because no one really has super long hair anymore. And if I don't want it to be super long, you can always put it in the ponytail and you can't tell anyway. So
it's awesome.
Either way, it works for now.
It's glorious. Don't ever change. Don't ever change, Chris. So I don't want to throw you under a bus here. You weren't obviously just in Sharknado. I mean, look, you also competed in season 11 of the wildly popular ABC show Dancing with the Stars, guested on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, Ellen, Rachel Ray, Talking Dead. A lot of people don't know this, but my absolute dream would be to appear on ABC's Dancing with the Stars. I was a dancer growing up, but it is a grind. I mean, rehearsing every single day, morning, noon, and night, memorizing different routines every week. Your physical appearance has to be in tip-top shape. What was your experience like being on Dancing with the Stars, Chris?
It'd be great for it. I'm just a matter of time before you do it. But I mean, it really was something that was presented to me 3 different occasions, and I turned it down the first 2 times because I thought, I'm not interested. Because once again, like I said at the beginning of this interview, I don't do anything that I don't feel 100% committed to. And then finally, when they asked me the 3rd time, I thought, if I say no again, they're not going to come back. And do you really want to not do this? And Stacy Keebler, who had done it, was actually the one who kind of had put me up for it. She was my friend at the time. I guess we're still friends. I haven't seen her in a while, but she said, you will love this. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. So I thought, well, let me kind of think about it. And then I realized, like I said earlier, reinvention and learning. I want to learn the art form of dancing. What is it about dancing that people really like? And, the first thing I learned is when people dance like at a wedding or they try and be funny. Real dancing, there's nothing funny about it. It's fucking hard and it's real. And you have to really, really put your mind to it. And so once I decided okay, I'm going to do this, that's what I did. It was every day, 6 days a week. And then the show would be on Monday of rehearsals. And if you weren't doing 6 to 8 to 10 hours a day of rehearsing, you weren't going to do it. You weren't going to make it. And I actually figured out very early on that they're slotting people. It's show business, right?
Right.
So they kind of have an idea of where they want people to go. And I don't think they expect me to be as good as I was right out of the gate, because if you think about it, I'm a musician. So I understand staying on the beat, staying behind the beat. I understand the count, 2 and 3 and 4 and go, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And you can understand that because that's what writing a song is, or singing melody lines and all that sort of stuff. So that was cool. And then the other thing was being a wrestler, choreography. That's second nature to me. I can remember long spots, choreography. And then the third thing being a live performer, which a lot of those contestants weren't. If you're looking at, somebody that's an actor, they're only used to doing, you take 3, take 4, take 5. If you screw up, you do it again. There is none of that when the live element is there. So I really enjoyed it. It was really, really hard, but it was a lot of fun. And I think I did 6 weeks, just 7 weeks before I got eliminated. And when I got eliminated, I was kind of bummed out.
That's a long run.
Am I going to dance now? And people say, what's that?
That's a long run.
Yeah. Well, it was a long run. And the thing's like, well, do you dance? It's like, no, I know 6 dances with Cheryl Burke, who was my partner, and that was it. But there was some really good ones. And I actually peaked too early because I started realizing they don't give out the 30s in week 2 or 3. They wait till 5 or 6 for that. And my second dance, I still say to this day, it was Quick Step, was one of the best dances that season. The only problem was it was too early to get the big marks, the big scores. But there's 3 of my dances that I was really, really proud of that stood out, and 3 of them were okay. But the ones that I nailed were in my opinion really, really great ones.
That's awesome. You're 50 years old. I think that's something we have to clear the air with, because I think it is remarkable that you are still to this day performing at such a high level. You got athletes like Tom Brady just won a Super Bowl. He's 44. Phil Mickelson won the PGA championship. He's 51 years old. LeBron James is still, one of the top players in the NBA league. He's 36. What's your secret, Chris, to staying in such great shape?
I think just kind of pacing myself. I for the last probably 5 or 6 years, I've only done, a handful of matches a year. I think AEW is maybe 17 a year that I have to do. And you change your style a bit, change my training regimen a bit. And I think that's it, just being smarter as a wrestler, using your psychology and your storytelling abilities. At 50, which is crazy. I can't believe I'm fucking 50. I never would have guessed.
Surprise.
That. But,
you're 50. I don't see any. I don't see really any grays yet, though.
Thank you.
Maybe a little bit.
There isn't. And there's no dye in there either. Yeah, there's no dye in there either.
That's impressive.
Yeah, just is what it is. But I think that what I don't have, I was never like super high flying or super fast. I was just kind of good at a lot of things, but not really great at one specific thing. So I think my wrestling style now is pretty much what it was 15 years ago. I'm just a lot smarter, so I can use it more to my advantage of telling the stories. Because wrestling, like I mentioned to you, is all connecting with the audience, and it's all storytelling. That's what it is. It's like a good movie or a good TV show is you want to hook people with the story. And that's what people are interested in. If not, it's just 2, half naked guys rolling around, and you can go to websites and pay money to see that, but you might want to come to wrestling for that. So that's kind of what I can really do, is use the experience, because you can't teach experience. Either you have it or you don't. And to me, that's kind of the real beauty of what wrestling is that style of the angles and the stories and that sort of thing. So to me, that's why I think I'm still able to perform at a high level, because I can use my brain way more than I used my body even.
You also, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you did DDP yoga at one point.
I did, yeah.
I'm a big yoga fan, proponent. I do core power yoga. It kicks my ass. It's such a great workout. But years ago, I believe you were having some back problems, and you were pretty outspoken about doing DDP.
Yeah.
What is DDP, and how did that help you longevity wise?
Well, I mean, it actually happened to me on Dance with the Stars. The very last week, I did kind of a twirl and threw Cheryl down but I'm sure it was, the 20 years of wrestling building up to that. But I was in really bad shape. I had a herniated disc, and they were talking back surgery. I could hardly sit. If I sneezed, it was, oh, no, shoot, And DDP, who was a fellow wrestler, Diamond Dallas Page, contacted me because I knew he had started his own yoga program because he had the same problem years prior to where they said you have to retire and he wasn't ready to. So he kind of created this morphed yoga combined with physical therapy, a lot of isometrics, where you're like really moving your muscles very slowly. And lo and behold, after about 3 months, I was completely cured. My back problems were gone, no surgery required. And that's when I really was like, this is the real deal. And I started to try and spread the word as much as I can. And now it's a multi-million-dollar company with thousands and thousands and thousands of clients, but it really, really works. And that was my point. Like, if you do this isn't lip service, but you have to do it. You can't just try it once and go, like, because I was doing it twice a day, every day, because I was really messed up. But once I kind of, after 10 days, it's a little bit better. And then a month is a little better. And you can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I was able to kind of spread that word to a lot of different people in the business, in music as well, in show business, in sports, just to anybody that was having, my back is messed up, my shoulders messed up, my neck is messed up. Well, you know what you need to try. And the people that tried it, it really worked for. So it is magic and it does actually work. And like I said, I don't know what kind of yoga you do or what, there's different types of yoga. For me, this really worked. And I think it would work for anybody and just yoga in general, because it's not just your body too, it's your mind, and combining the two and just having that strength from within that really kind of permeates, start at the top of your head and feel it draining down. And you can actually feel it, but you have to be in tune and ready to give it a real shot.
I love it. What makes DDP yoga different than other forms of yoga? Like, I do hot yoga. It's like core power is like high intensity. It involves weights. But it really knocks you on your butt. But gosh, you burn probably 1,000, at a minimum 1,000 calories per class. But what sets DDP apart from the rest of them?
I think, like I said, I don't know because I haven't done any other type of yoga but DDP. But I think it's just the combination with the physical therapy, exercises, and the isometrics. That's I think where the difference lies there. More coming at it more from maybe an athletic perspective, rather than just, the yoga perspective, kind of combining those two elements. But like I said, I haven't done any other type of yoga other than DDPs. So I wouldn't even know where to start with other yoga. It's like, for me, if I'm going to do the yoga, it's going to be this style because it worked for me, which I would assume is probably like, different styles of martial arts or different styles of karate, taekwondo, jukundo, those types of things, different philosophies for the same idea.
Right. No, I think that's great advice. So anyone out there, if you want to get back into great shape or just get your mind right, if you have back problems like Chris Jericho did, hey, take up DDP yoga. That's great advice. And speaking of advice, we're going to be wrapping up soon here, Chris, but what advice would Chris Jericho today give Jericho in his 20s? I'm curious.
There's really not much advice I would give. It'd just be to stay the course and do what you've been doing. Because when I look back as a young Chris Jericho, the path and the journey was always to lead me to where I am now, to where I don't have to rely on anybody. No one's going to tell me what to do. I have a boss, but I could leave at any time and whatever. Put all my chips on myself. Like when we started doing the Jericho cruise, the Rock and Wrestling Rager, it was an idea that I had. It took me 3 years to get it going. And I realized early on, when you start doing this sort of a thing, where you have so many different talents coming on board and there's so many activities, it's like, I don't know the different mindsets for people. And I'm going to rely on myself because I know I'm not going to screw myself. I'm not going to no-show myself. I'm not going to demand too much money from myself. And same with Fozzy. I'll put Fozzy as the headlining band. That way I don't have to worry about paying, $150,000 to some band that would sell 50 tickets. Like, what the hell? Who would pay that? And some cruises do. I'll put it in Fozzy's basket and I'll sell it out myself. And when you can believe in yourself, you don't have to rely on anybody else. That's the best position to be in. So that was always my goal as in my 20s and 30s. And here I am now, like I said, at 50, and I've achieved that. So it would just be stay the course. You're doing the right thing. It might not seem like it sometimes, and it might be pretty hard to do, but you know that already. You knew that from the moment you got into wrestling and got into music, that it's not easy. just hold on and keep doing what you feel is right. And, follow your dreams, follow your goals, because they can come true if you work hard enough and believe in yourself. And that's what I did.
I love that. And I love your sentiment about really not being beholden to anyone, not feeling like you have an IOU sticker
No.
on your forehead. I mean, you just really blaze your own path here.
I never wanted to be worried. Like, what if, something happens and I get fired and then what am I going to do? Like, I don't ever want to put myself in that position. And I haven't, like I said, I mean, I could get fired tomorrow, but I've got 10 other things I can do. That'll probably give me more time to do that. So,
and I think your 3.9 million Instagram followers would happily hook you up. You have a huge fan base out there, and we take care of you. Okay, so we're going to do something really fun to wrap this up. I have never feel honored because I've never done this before with any of my other guests. You are the first. We're going to just do a quick, fun, rapid fire round. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, strap in, Chris Jericho. All right, get ready. Which do you prefer, texting or talking on the phone? Go.
Texting.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Favorite holiday?
Halloween.
Oh, what are you dressing up for this year?
I'm not sure because my cruise is right after. I've got like 4 costumes for that. So I'll figure something out. What I always do is I go to the drugstore the day of Halloween when everything's been picked over and put something together, like SpongeBob on acid. I went as Mitt Romney as a French maid once because all I found was a French maid costume and a Mitt Romney mask.
That is incredible.
So I never know till the day of the show. I'll know.
Game time decision. I like that. First ever celebrity crush.
I was just talking with sister Kim Richards, who was in Return to Witch Mountain, who I then met on the set of Sharknado 3. She was in that.
Look at that. Life comes full circle.
There you go.
Do you snore? There's a long pause here. Did we cut out? Did you hear my question?
I don't know if I froze you.
Did you? Okay.
I heard your question. I don't know if you heard my answer. So
no, I didn't hear your answer. Okay, I'll ask again. Do you snore?
Yeah. I've been told that I snore. You never know for sure, but people have told me that I have. Yes.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Gotta set up that video camera recording next time you go to sleep.
That's right. Exactly.
All right. Say a word in Spanish, Chris Jericho.
Muy bien.
That's a phrase, but we'll
Mucho
take
gusta,
it. We'll
Jen.
take it. We'll take it. All right. Okay. Have you ever worn socks?
¿Dónde está Zapatero?
Okay, love it. Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
Socks?
Have you ever worn socks with sandals? No. Okay.
No.
Okay, we're almost done. Would you rather cuddle a baby panda or a baby penguin?
Panda. They're softer.
Okay. Godfather or Star Wars?
Star Wars by far.
Name one of the 7 dwarfs.
Sleepy. Dopey. Schlotsky.
I don't think that's one. LA or New York?
It's hard to say. I mean, for work, maybe LA, but for vibe and excitement, New York.
Okay. I got to choose one only. Cats or dogs, Chris Jericho?
Dogs.
Wow, you answered that. You didn't even stutter.
Yeah.
All right, what is your death row meal? I know, such a morbid question. I love asking people this. By the way, I usually lead with this on a first date. Kind of creepy, right? But it's so good because it tells you a lot about the person. So if you were on death row, what would your last meal be?
For right now, how I feel today, game day decision, pepperoni and ground beef pizza with extra cheese, vodka with club soda, and warm cherry pie with vanilla ice cream.
That is the most aggressive meal. I like how you mentioned the vodka, like get a little buzz going. Why not?
Well, you don't have to worry about burning off the calories either. That's done at that point.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, we know what Chris Jericho's death row meal is. If you're ever on death row, I'll be sure to get you that
If
pizza.
I ever go on a killing spree, at least you know what I'll be having for my final meal.
Lastly, favorite podcast appearance besides yours? Yeah, answer carefully. Tread lightly here, Chris.
Favorite podcast appearance? Well,
Or just
honestly,
favorite podcast.
well, okay, so here's the thing. I always loved getting interviewed by Larry King. He was my favorite because he kind of knew what you did, but not really. But he was super smart at listening to what you were talking about and asking questions in the moment. You got a new book. The book's what is the book about? And then you'd say a couple things, and then it was always this just amazing interview with him. And obviously, he was one of the greatest to ever do it for a reason. Another great one is Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols had a great show on KLOS in LA. It's called Jonesy's Jukebox. Anytime you go to talk to Jonesy, same thing. Kind of knew what you did, didn't really care. Let's just talk about whatever's going on. And those were always my favorite interviews because there was no real, it's the same thing I do with Talk is Jericho. I don't ever have questions because when people have questions, they're more worried about following what's on the written page for what the question is, rather than listening to the answers and going, oh, that's interesting. Let's talk about this. And that's for me, like I listen back to every episode of Talk is Jericho because I like to listen to it as a fan because when I'm doing it, I'm always thinking ahead. What's the next question going to be? Like you did a great job today. I know you maybe had some questions you didn't, but you don't want dead air. You don't want there to be a fucking dead end in the story. You always have to keep it flowing. And the best way to do that is just talk. Like if I met you at a bar, hello, I'm Chris. Hi, I'm Jen. Like, I don't pull out a list of questions and go, so you just talk and either you have a good conversation or you don't. But either way, as a podcast host, you have to have a good conversation. So you better figure it out quickly. And to me, once again, like game day decision on the fly, those are always the most exciting ones. The ones where you really don't know and you just go and just have a great chat.
I would love for you. You mentioned walking up to me at a bar and having a conversation. I would love that. I would love if you walked up to me and was like, hi, I'm Chris Jericho. I would totally pretend like I didn't even know who you were.
All right.
I'd be like, I'm sorry, what? Who?
Next time I see you, I'll meet you at the Copa at 9:30.
I love it. Like, Chris, what do you do for a living? What, wrestling? What's that? Professional wrestling? I love it. Well, listen.
Yeah, I always just say I'm in show business and see where it goes, you know.
That's a great answer because you do so much. So probably just saying show business, you know, I mean, without
that's the best way to do it. And then you'll see right there because some people go, oh, that's cool. Or other people go, oh, what kind of show business? Then you get into it. Right?
Yeah, right. You know, just as long as you don't make it sound like you're like in weird porn.
I'm Chris Jericho. Haven't you heard of me?
Right. I love it. Well, you have certainly been one of my favorite interviews so far on Reinvented, Chris. Thank you so much for coming on Reinvented with Jen Eckhart. Lastly, just once you hang up the wrestling boots, I want to know, like, what's next for Chris Jericho? What can you promote right now? Like, what can fans and viewers tune into and look out for?
Well, I mean, you know, it's one of those things that like I have so many cool things going on and I've done that by design. You know, I can't wrestle forever, but you know, I'm going to go see the Stones next month and mix almost 80. So we've got a rock and roll band that's pretty hot right now that there's no real expiration date on that. And the cruise is amping up again. Thank goodness. The first two were great. Then we got postponed due to the lockdown. Now we're getting back out on the water. Podcast is still a lot of fun. There's no reason to ever think about not doing that because once again, I can talk about whatever I want, you know? So just continue to do cool shit that people who follow my career will be happy to follow and happy to be involved with, and just go from there. I really don't have any limits or plans or whatever it may be, because it'll happen when it happens. And when it does, if I think it's cool, I'll give it 1,000% and make it great.
Stay cool, Chris Jericho. Keep evolving, keep reinventing. I mean, you really do fit the theme to a T. And again, just so grateful to have you on. So grateful to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks, Jen. That was a lot of fun. Thank you.
To all my viewers and listeners, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, Reinvented with Jen Eckhart. That's available wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, you name it, it's there. I'm Jen Eckhart. That was Chris Jericho. Thank you for listening.